Welcome back. This is our second episode of Activists. This is Nina.
And this is John.
And today, the title of this episode is Insurrection. So first, we're going to take a recap of last episode. We were wrapping up 2020. We had a real good discussion. It was kind of like a free-form discussion about homelessness. So we're going to ask you to take a look at our opinion piece on our holiday giving on the website at www.activist.com and what we're doing here locally in Chicago, or what we plan to do here locally in Chicago. And other than that, we entered into 2021 with a bang.
Quite literally. I mean, we were what? 6 days?
We made it 6 days. No incidents.
No, we made it 5 days, no incidents.
Like the work report on the board.
On the sixth day.
In the factory.
We made it 5 days with no incidents, and on the sixth day we decided, fuck it, we're going to raid the Capitol.
Yeah. So this week's Cussin Discuss is featuring the opinion piece that John did on cults. So first, we need to explore what exactly is a cult.
Well, a cult is when you hold something or somebody to an insanely high standard. So, hold on. We got it right here. Just pull it up. Go ahead. I knew that's exactly what you were going to do anyways. Just go ahead, pull it up.
All right.
Cult is defined as a noun, right? Here we go. Cult is defined as a noun, a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. It's also a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as sinister.
So a minority belief.
That is also considered sinister.
Yeah.
And it is also considered a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. So, technically speaking, in the very technical sense, we live in a world of cults, right? From TV to sports to shopping to hobbies to all these things you can consider some way, shape, or format kind of cult-like or quasi-cult groups, which is very effective in today's landscape, right? As far as marketing or investing or whatever is concerned, right? But the real problem here is that cults generally birth at a rapid, unchecked pace a slew load of conspiracies. Generally speaking, when you're missing information and you jump to conclusions in one shape or regard, you can create a conspiracy out of anything, right? We could look at a bottle of water, right? And it's not something that, came out of a spring or a well, but they, pure. If you don't know how water is actually put into this bottle, you could say and make some kind of argument that some billionaire decided to adopt 500 children and purify their tears, right? That's a sinister conspiracy, and it's kind of a dark thought, but at the same time, like, this is how conspiracy is born. And a conspiracy is basically reinforced by providing misinformation or putting an extreme twist on factual information to kind of push the conspiracy forward,
okay,
which is held by the cult and then proliferated throughout wherever, which now that can happen in a matter of seconds.
And don't you find it interesting that as a part of our culture, typically cults are more of an underground, mysterious thing? They're typically associated with like Satanist groups, or like, we don't really discuss cultism in our culture in regards to religion or even politically.
Well, I think that when people hear the term cults, it's mostly reserved for religious.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, pop culture and comic books and TV shows and whatever, if you say cult, there's usually some dude that's like, I am Jesus reincarnated, or, oh, we're going to summon Satan, or, oh, all hail Cthulhu. But what they miss out on is that cults range far and wide. It doesn't matter what the context is. You only have to meet a few criteria to hit a cult, right? To hit cult status. If you really love tulips and you can convince other people that tulips are the best flower above all else, then you have created a cult, right? You have created a cult of tulip-loving people. Is this inherently bad? No, right? No one's going to look at you and tell you that your Harry Potter fandom is detrimental to society or to the world at large.
Because in that regard, it's looked upon as pop culture.
Right.
It's, it's fun. This is a fun cult
to
be a part of.
Right. And then there's other cults like 3%ers.
Yeah.
Right, the 3%ers. That's a dangerous ass cult to be a part of.
But if you were to tell these groups that they're cults, they would probably be like, "Gasp."
They'd be extremely offended.
Because of how we view cults in our society, right?
Right.
So
they're all nutters. They're supposed to, if you're in a cult, you're supposed to be a nutter. You're not supposed to be normal, which I dare anybody to pick out and define what normal is.
Yeah.
And support it.
So now, ironically, the situation that happened with the Capitol has now brought this concept to the fore. Is, Trumpism a cult, right? So there's like a lot of mainstream discussion about, their group of people, or faction, if you will, and their innate religious belief in Trump. I mean, going as far as even, calling him Jesus.
Oh yeah,
a savior.
Like in the first part of the 2016 election, where there was the whole meme of the God King Trump.
Right.
Right. And that's extremely dangerous to give somebody
that much power.
To give somebody that title.
Yeah, that's power.
Because some people are literally looking for Jesus to come back.
I have to say most great leaders are hesitant to take on any such title, or even to take on the role of leadership. A lot of times they'll know the way, they'll know the plan, they'll know how to lead the people. But they understand, before they even take a position of leadership, the responsibility that befalls them. Right. So they're more hesitant, and I think that speaks a lot to a person's character as well, and the character of an individual that would accept a title such as the God King, and just openly accept it and move forward with no remorse. And at the same time, these very people that hold him on such a high pedestal are the first ones thrown under a bus as soon as it benefits him, and as soon as it benefits his agenda.
Yeah, they're expendable.
So they're very expendable, and that's coming to the fore, even more so after the events of the 6th. He's gone from we love you so much to
violence
I don't condone that. I would never condone any of this.
And you were just
at the what is it, the rally
right before,
telling these people, go ahead, go, I'll be the first one in line, and
I'll be following you, I'm with you, blah blah blah. Like, basically what you did was make a speech and then turn it into a battle cry,
right,
if you will, because once a leader joins the fray, after you've spent months talking about how the election was rigged, how it's going to be rigged, and you started prepping them for you to lose.
Yeah.
And then you basically dared all of your supporters, your ardent supporters, to fight for you after spending months of whipping them up.
Yeah. And you speak to this in the article when you say, when you talk about the exploitation of the people.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely talk to that. And the deception of him, being in front of these people and making them believe that even though he's come from money, he's come from this specific background, he's just like them. And they ate this up like pancakes and bacon.
Chicken and waffles.
And unfortunately, now I'm hoping some of them are waking up to the idea that maybe I've been led astray here.
A lot of them have. A lot of them have come around because I can see where there was the people who didn't take it seriously, right? And they just voted along party lines because that's what they vote for, right? Like some people don't want to change parties because, oh, my dude's kind of a loon, right? I'm not a true Republican if I don't vote Republican constantly, right? And I can see that, okay. And you're not really subscribed to it. It's just what your habit is. And then, once it's all said and done, you're able to say, as you as the individual, like, hey, good game, we'll see you in 4 years, right? I really love these back and forths, right? And they take down all their Trump shit and they go throw it away, or they put it in a box, or they keep it, or whatever. I don't give a fuck.
Right. What's really disturbing about how this cult has grown, and I'm going to call it a cult.
It is a cult. There's nothing wrong with calling it a cult. It is.
I'm going to call it a cult at this point. Because it was based in fear, which is one of the key red flags of any cult. Like, I'm going to play on your fear, and you're going to support and follow me because I can conquer your fear. Not you conquering your fear, but your faith in me conquers your fears, which is a lie. It's a horrible lie, but people look for salvation in the oddest of places sometimes. And there's a part of me that feels sorry for these people. And then there's a part of me that, wishes people would be more open to what makes them afraid, reach out a little bit more, learn more outside of your, one media station that's feeding you one perspective of a community or a particular social issue or problem, right? Before you come to a conclusion that, oh, these people are going to take our jobs, and oh, if we let this community thrive, they're going to come back and slaughter us all for slavery. Oh, these conspiracies, right, that have been born out of this entire, administration are, for the most part, completely erroneous. They're just not based in real fact or real life fact. Now,
but that also extends to the idea of conspiracies really only work because we as a society, having a centralized religion, have been taught that all the bad shit in your life is not always your fault. It's because there's this grand plan. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty much set on the idea that there's a lot of different moving parts, and your statistics as far as what could happen to you in a single day is influenced by the externals that are around you, not just yourself. You get to control like the core part of this, but the externals to all of this also affect what can happen to you. When you walk outside, you have a certain percentage chance of being struck by lightning out of the blue. You have a certain percentage chance, or a certain ratio chance to get hit by a car, to be in a car crash, to slip and bust your head, to have a stroke, to have a heart attack, and a whole bunch of other different things, right? But it doesn't mean that it fucking happens, right? Now, if you're worried about a heart attack and you eat McDonald's 3 to 6 times a day, chances of you having a heart attack go way up.
Yeah.
Or if you drink beer every day, right? You put back a case every day.
One burger a day.
One burger a day, right? So things that you do and things around you can affect how it is. Because if 5 years ago they say eating 2 burgers a day increases your chance of a heart attack by 80%, right? And then we flash forward today and they come out with an article that says eating 2 burgers a day will give you 5 more years of life, right? I know, it's ridiculous, right?
That's a whole nother topic.
But this is speaking to external influences, right?
Yeah.
So if in the last 5 years, you would be less likely, especially if you had a fear of having a heart attack, right, to eat burgers because you wouldn't want to have the heart attack. But now, if they came out and they said, oh, eating 2 burgers a day is good for you, right, it'll give you life. Y'all ass be out there doing multiples of 2 eating burgers. We talk about triple stack burgers 3 times a day, 2 at a whack. Right? 2 in a sitting. So that's an external influencing your decision on what to do. And yeah, you hear enough people around you say, oh, the problem with America is all of the illegal immigrants. Technically speaking, that was the case even when we were underneath British rule. That was the problem with America from the Native Americans' perspective, right? All the fucking illegal immigrants coming over here with their fucking smallpox.
Right.
So you can't really blame an other for the problems that you have, because technically speaking, unless you're doing everything perfectly, which I can guarantee you nobody is.
There's no way.
Then at the top of the totem pole, all the way down to you, has some way, shape, format of a role that plays into this large-scale problem. There is not a one solution to a large-scale problem. It is a balancing act at all times. So people are so eager to follow conspiracies and cults, because it resonates with, yes, their fear base. It also takes advantage of their ignorance. Mm-hmm. By reaffirming a bias chamber, you have no want to go look for new information because you're being confirmed, right? And in our society, which basically runs off of how many likes, dislikes, views, digital perception, your digital footprint, why? Like, why would you want to? Right. You're being given the very thing you're looking for.
And I think that's what was really important to the founding fathers, and Hamilton, wrote about this in the Federalist in regards to, he kind of played devil's advocate, with that concept of majority rule. But this is why democracy is important in our country. Mm-hmm. And, we don't want to ostracize the small guy. So therefore, the smaller portion of our society needs to always have a voice. Mm-hmm. But collectively as a nation, we should agree on what's best for all. Right?
We can only reach those consensus if we're honest.
Right.
And with the introduction of having cameras in the Senate and the House, technically speaking, at all times that they're performing their job, their constituents are watching.
Right.
So if logically you say that's a valid ass point, right? But that may fuck my constituents and they're watching me right now.
Exactly.
So then they go ahead and they spew off some bullshit just because it plays well with their base, even though it's bad politics, like literally bad at doing your job.
Yeah, but I think the more involvement there is from, corporate entities and utilities, they want to make a profit. They're in business and they actually get rewarded. Most corporations get rewarded for their profits because of the stock market, the stock system. So what may be good for the people sometimes is not what's good for the goose, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we strayed away from like the core of what was written, foundationally with the Constitution and all the checks and balances that were attempted to be put in place here to say, as a people, okay, for example, every Friday we're gonna round up all the livestock and take account, like a census, right? There might be 10 people that's like, well, my religion dictates that on Friday I'm supposed to be in prayer every day, right? But there's a whole nother 50, 60, 70 other people, right, in this small little country, right? That's like, Friday's a good day. Friday's a good day for us to do this. I think we should do it. And, we're going to take a vote on it. And so they take a vote on it. That's the majority. The vote agrees. And then these 10 people are like, this rule isn't fair because of our religion. So, at that point, the governance has to make an exception for them. So you have an exception.
Right. You don't have to be here, but you don't get to vote.
Right.
And that's the compromise.
Right. And so our Constitution, in respecting freedom of religion, for example, this is where our Constitution may step in and say, with the exception of your religious belief, right? You can do your count on Saturday or Thursday, but no later than Sunday, because we have to be complicated with our laws, right?
Yeah.
But you 10 are not required on Sunday to do this.
Or Friday or
right?
whatever.
And all of that makes sense, right? But when you're attempting to put into place laws that entrap people, or you attempt to take basic rights away, like voter rights, or obstruct those rights, obstruct, the right to liberty and happiness, even, and wanting to come here, like it's some,
that is such a joke at this point. Like, let's be clear, that's a fucking joke.
Well, I mean, we were the land of the
free.
free. There was a time where immigration was the thing for America.
Let's take that into context, right? Like, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? It doesn't really have a whole lot of dictation as far as what that actually might constitute, right? If you just take that one line, right? We have the right to freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Do you feel free?
Fuck no. Fuck no. I do not feel free. Do I feel free to run my mouth? Of course, but that's not because that I actually feel free to run my mouth. That's just because I don't give a good goddamn, right? Because let me ask this question. If what makes you happy is murdering the fuck out of 10 or more people in a single sitting, should that be protected? No.
No, because the majority of people would say
that is not cool.
These people need to get some mental help, and
no, they'd be calling for them to be killed, because let's be clear, we don't believe in mental health in fucking America. There's an entire movement that is like, yo, bitch, like, this actually fucking exists, and it's weaponized.
Well, I think now it's more acceptable. Mental health issues are more acceptable, but it's a little too late.
Yeah.
Because we went through an era in the 90s, where a lot of these programs that were sponsored by the state, or sponsored by the states, rather, have been pulled back. Resources have been taken away. And, the irony in that is, as these resources are being taken away, you've got social media popping up and, everybody's like, it's okay to be depressed on and taking 5 different antidepressants. And, now it's okay. So don't lock up your sister in the basement anymore because, she's a human being too, which I'm grateful for, definitely, because mental illness is something that afflicts everyone's family. There's no family on this planet that does not have someone or multiples of individuals with some sort of chemical imbalance that may or may not require some sort of treatment, therapy, whatever, to kind of get them stabilized. Because again, you can get into what's normal, but there really is no real definition of normal.
Right. And technically in the 90s, that was an entire cult in of itself, was to give your kids fucking drugs. Oh, my child is on Ritalin because he has ADHD. Your child is 5.
Right.
What is he supposed to do?
Which speaks to the opioid problems and, all of that. And now it's like, oh, this is a real issue and blah, 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 blah.
That was an MLM, let's be clear.
But
the whole opioid crisis was basically an MLM.
Right. But that takes us right on back to the constituents and the lobbyists, and what's good for the company may not always be good for you.
Right. So the real question is kind of swinging back to cults here, is how exactly are you really supposed to stop a cult? I mean, I argued that there is arguably 2 ways, right? There's arguably 2 ways. Either A, give it so much exposure that it grows too fast and too hard for it to actually properly organize, right? And actually grow to being what it could be. And in essence, it blows itself up because... it'll blow itself up because people bandwagon it, right? People will bandwagon on it because it's popular, and then either expose it for what it really is, or it'll create so many factions of itself that the factions will just spend all of its time going to war with itself.
Right. They break off and they break off and they break off. And I think what's happening now after what happened on the 6th with the Capitol, it's an interesting thing here, that these would be the people that were there, right? They could be considered the extremists of Trumpism, right? We are willing, when you do something like this, you're saying that you are willing to die.
You're willing to kill and be killed.
For what you believe in and for what you want, right? And so now the FBI, law enforcement, they're searching for these people. They're presenting these consequences, and which is great, right? I'm not knocking this, but I guess what I'm trying to say is in regards to the cult of Trump, what does that say to the cult? Because at this point, these people become martyrs, right? Oh, they're going to jail,
It really just depends. It depends on what a cult leader does, right? So in the instance of Trump, the fact of the matter that he's come out and actually given a denouncement to the violence that happened at the Capitol puts his cult in a really weird position, because beforehand they were these heroes, right? Oh, we got all these guns and we have real soldiers that would die for us, right?
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So as the FBI, as law enforcement goes after them, right, which I applaud 100%, and I really hope that they clean house all the way through, because no one should be representing the United States government and fear for their lives in the Capitol of the United States. For the amount of money that we invest,
$740 billion, yeah.
The Patriot Act, the whole bit, all of this surveillance, there is no way, there should be no way for anybody to be able to just walk into the Capitol
or push their way into the
Capitol, defecate on the floor,
wipe on the walls,
kill officers, attack attack our senators and our House leaders.
Steal the House Speaker's podium.
Still, you're in here taking selfies. You're on Facebook with it. Like, it's no problem. It's just an insurrection. This is what we do.
When it was first reported on, after it was reported on, there were a few articles talking about how a day before the Capitol attack, an FBI agent had actually come across this plan to get inside this rally and go fuck shit up, right? Put together an entire presentation and report in 45 minutes and kicked it up the chain. Nothing happened with it.
Yeah.
So that tells me either one of two things. Either A, it was a one-off, which, considering now all of these social media companies are saying this is everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking scary, because if you think about it, one FBI analyst, sent up one report. Mm-hmm. This wasn't on like 9, 10, 15, 20 people's different radar. Where the fuck's the rest of the reports, Tom?
Right. And I feel like information's been suppressed, and there's been articles about, they've been saying this is, clear and present danger, this is going to happen. They've been monitoring Facebook. They've been monitoring, all the social media platforms that they can. Mm-hmm. They are aware of the threat. It's just like, when any other terrorist group like the KKK rises up, they are aware of the threat. The question is, what's the action past that threat? How do we move forward, right? And in this case, they're moving forward with what they can, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do they move forward as a cult? Is it now, do they recognize, do you think that over the next year or so they'll recognize that their leader doesn't care? Are they so strung along that they don't even hear when he's throwing them under the bus?
The problem that I think with this particular set of extremists, because they're already considered decentralized, they're already considered a decentralized extremist group, right? They have different names. They can claim plausible deniability. They have a lot of protections by being their own organizations at times. They don't need Trump. They don't. They just don't fucking need him.
Yeah, now they can just...
No, not just that. They were doing that anyways, right? But they do understand that by not working underneath a banner and doing something on their own shit makes them a terrorist group. Flat out.
Right.
Right? If a bunch of 3%ers ran to the Capitol, shot up the Capitol, and killed everybody in the Capitol, they're a terrorist group.
Right.
But because they were flipped up by the President of the United States, we're patriots. Our president told us...
They can hide behind our flag.
They can hide behind it. These aren't people that are willing to go through the proper legal channels. They're not people that are willing to go through the predetermined system that's here to create change. They're willing to violently overthrow, and they bear no allegiance to anything but their version of the Stars and Stripes.
Right.
Their version is the key here. Because what do they want specifically? Like, I don't think any of them could give me an economic plan.
No.
I don't think any of them could give me a foreign policy plan.
No, America first.
America first.
All of that.
That's all.
When you look at all of those questions that are normally debated in a presidential debate or whatever, the answer is always, from that group, is always America first.
Right.
Right? So, and if you don't like it, get out. So, whatever that means. But getting back to, how do you stop it? My perspective of it is the truth. The truth has to prevail. People cannot back down from telling the truth, which I felt that media, there was a lot of media sources, and you could tell some of the reporters, it was on the tip of their tongues that they wanted to say more than what they were saying. But Trump got played up so much because of ratings and, you know, the money behind this with advertising, the whole bit, that I feel like when there were opportunities where the truth could have been spoken to American people, and not just on one news source, but several news sources, the truth, right? The truth breaks people free. The first time a person hears the truth, they may not like it, they may not respond to it, but you cannot run away from the truth. The truth is the same as it was when I first told it in 1950. It's going to be the same truth when I tell it in 2020, right?
Right.
So the truth doesn't deviate, and to me, that's the only way for someone to recognize, right, that the situation that they're in when it comes to Trumpism is not where it's at, right? And it's not to devalue how they feel, right? But they also need the truth about those emotions as well. You feel as though minorities are going to take something from you because you've always been told that it's yours, innately yours, but you've not been given the history
of why
behind how it became yours.
Right.
And so you have a fear when you're introduced to that history. You suddenly have a fear, right? Because you realize that the entire system that is yours is set up to oppress the backbone of this country, right? The minorities that keep it running. You say, we taking the jobs, right? The minorities are taking the jobs. Well, who's going to go out there and pluck all that fruit? Who's going to go into those meatpacking places and package up that filet mignon you like to eat? Who's doing these jobs? Who is out here paving your streets?
Yeah, and ask yourself how many jobs that actually makes up, right?
Exactly. Are you going to do it? Who's cleaning the office buildings? Are you going to do it?
Bitching about the jobs that you don't want to do and that you look down on for being done?
Because here's the thing. You wouldn't even have to worry about a stimulus package at that point. You can just say, we've decided we're willing to take care of ourselves fully. And so therefore, if you're not of Caucasian descent,
you ain't getting shit.
No. Here's a stimulus package of, I don't know, $100K. Go back to your place of origin. Right?
You gonna get them Man, I'd be like, I'm not Caucasian.
But they're not going to do that, right? Because they don't want to do the work.
Man, I would snap. If you're not Caucasian, you get $100K. I beg you, I'm not Caucasian.
And see, look, and then here's the next insurrection. They get $100K. I can't get $100K. I want to go back to Ireland. I want to go back to the
Germany.
UK. See, we're never happy.
No, we're never happy because we talk about equality in the whole bit, right? But we always have to leave somebody out because they don't fit whatever we're trying to address. And that's the fucking sad fact of anybody trying to find equality. You're just not going to. You're just not. You can get as close as you possibly fucking can. But it's not really that you're looking for equality at this point. What you're really looking for is an understanding and respect that we're going to be able to have some kind of conversation. And if I tell you that I like boys or I like girls, the response doesn't flow around the way of, that's immoral and disgusting. Right?
Oh, and we're like, very judgmental.
Yeah, fuck it. Like, if we're not going to be able to say, everybody is valued, everybody has worth and purpose, and you're just going to shit bash on people, it doesn't fucking matter. Ooh, she blown all the way out of proportion.
Well,
our husky is on a sedative right now so that she doesn't get at her stitches. And I don't think she understands what's going on with her, and she thinks that that she's sick.
Well, this country is based in division, even down to how we identify ourselves. We don't say, I'm American.
Yeah.
It's, I'm Asian American.
I'm
Afro-American. I'm Afro-American. I'm Latina American. I'm
Puerto Rican American.
We have so many classifications of Americans that, it would be nice if we all were just American. And if we started there, we would be able to have an American agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, at that point, it's not about, but are you brown? Are you purple? Like, are you tan?
Man, holla at me if you're purple, because I've been trying to get on that level for a while.
So, like, if we could get away from that and just start looking at each other as people, we could build a real structure that worked for Americans, because we're not all that different.
No. We're not. We all have the same fears. We all have the same... We have the same wants because we live in the same society, so we end up having the same fucking wants as the next.
Some people just have greater access to those things
than others. But I mean, the only other way to get rid of a cultist ideology, or really any ideology in particular, the only real way is to make sure that it can't proliferate. So you got a couple options. You can silence them, whether that's permanently or temporarily.
Which is what is being attempted now.
Oh, I meant 6 feet deep. 6 feet deep or ban. That's one way that you can silence it.
And that's on an extreme.
But I mean, there's certain ideologies that probably should have been completely wiped out. Let's be real here.
But they won't.
But they won't, because it's considered too heinous or just like them. Like, I'm sorry, but you took the Nazis underneath Operation Paperclip and brought them here to work on science, right?
Right.
But in reality, you also allowed them access to people of all different types of generations. Either behind them or ahead of them.
And let's be clear here, it's easy to integrate that ideology into American society during that time frame, because that's one of the worst times in our history in regards to race relations. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to manipulate individuals if they're already teetering the line of, I don't like those people because, they were...
so uneducated.
They're so uneducated. Even though they're uneducated because they were put into forced labor and set back generations because of this, because the people were oppressed. So it's not, let's do more. It was, we're better than them. We're not slaves. We're white. So,
I mean,
it's easy to infiltrate a society like that when it already has that ideology, running through its veins.
Right, and the only other way that I can think of is either expose it to the degree that it can't maintain itself, right, or wipe it out. Because unfortunately, an idea is like a virus. It's very hard to kill, right? It's very hard to kill, and it takes a very long time to inoculate a populace with a counterpoint that would cause them to reject the ideology.
We would need 2 solid generations of
no white supremacists.
No classifications of different skin colors, and just, you got citizenship here, you are an American. It does not matter what color you are when you apply for things. What matters is, do you have the proper education? Do you have the ability to do the work? Like, we need to get down to fairness,
Well, we talk about fairness, but we don't want to give everybody equal footing.
But if we get rid of classifications, maybe we can. I mean, it's just a suggestion. It's a cussin and discuss.
But,
you know what I mean?
Well, we're discussing it at this point, and we're about to start cussing. So, you can say equality in the whole bit, right? But if everybody's not on the same playing field, there is no equality. Why? People with all of the money can afford the best schools. And then that is a linear, what's it called? Degradation as you go down the economic scale, right? So if $1 billion is on the left side of the scale and we're going closer to zero going to the right, this would look like this would just be a complete free fall all the way to the bottom.
So on the flip side of where you're going with this, for example, if we do away with classification, right, and legislature for schools, for example, we come down to a standardized, on the federal level, this is what everybody needs to get when they're in school from this grade to this grade. The states still control how that curriculum is dispersed, or what they want to add into their curriculums, right? However, all of the schools at that point would get the same mandates. If the Fed said no computers in those schools older than 2 years, right? All the schools would have to have the same technology. No school can serve a lunch that is graded less than B. All of the schools would have to provide real food, real lunches, right? It doesn't come down to, well, this school over here on the north side, because it's with the classifications, it's completely different. Even down to population sizes, the size of the schools, right? So no school should exceed, I'm just throwing a number out here, 1,500 students, right? Which means if you don't have enough schools for an area, you are now allowed to build another school to make sure that it's fair. Versus with classifications, now you've got, this school over here on the north side has the money. And what they don't have, right, the neighborhood has the money. And the neighborhood has the council to promote and keep this group of students, right, with the best of this, the best of that. On and on and on and on. This other group on the south side, right, on the south side, may not even be aware of what's the latest technology, what's the latest this, what's the latest that. Because you have to remember, the minority groups have been set back, right? And so you have to reach for that education. You have to reach beyond that. And that's a struggle in itself. But if we declassify it, now these kids, this new generation and the generation after that, they're not reaching for it. It's there.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's just up to us parents to go, hey.
Get your ass to school.
Right. Things are different now. Right? The opportunity is there.
That's
right?
also another thing is that I'm seeing a lot of shit online where it's multiple people talking about how we shouldn't be trying to push forward into new territories.
What?
Right? Yeah, we shouldn't be pushing, you're lazy, and back in my day, right? This comparison to things past. I thought that the entire purpose of being a parent, right, was to make sure that your children did not have to go through what you did. I thought that was the entire purpose, was for them to be able to learn from a platform
that was more advanced than the platform that you learned from.
Exactly.
But again,
it's supposed to be a building cycle, but yet we see people in here only thinking about that on such a limited prospect that why wouldn't you want education to be full access to you?
Right. Education should be advancing itself. It should not be... One, I take issue with the removal of books.
Yeah.
Okay. And I take issue with the removal of being able to write, because I feel like you need these cores, right? You need the basics. Technology doesn't always work,
Now,
right?
are you saying like writing in cursive, or are you talking about like writing in
cursive,
composition?
writing composition, critical thinking, philosophy, all of these things, like where now it's like, oh, that's not really necessary. They don't really need that. What they need to do is study everything that's coming up on this test so that we can get state funding.
Yeah.
Which again,
because
like
they're
I said,
fighting for fucking funding.
Because like I said, if we stop classifying everyone, then we really can get to we need to compete, right? Mm-hmm. On the education front, we've been slipping for the last 10 years.
And there's already a front runner out there that provides a very excellent model, as they're the number one educated country in the world.
I know who you're going to say, and it's our original model for education, by the way.
Damn. So,
but it's too much like socialism.
And that's another thing, is that they want to sit here and be like, that's socialism.
That potty word.
That's such a fucking cop-out.
So
you don't know how to fucking exist?
You get what I'm saying here when I talk about, like, if they did stop classifying everything, stop looking at it like, oh, that's the affluent white area, and oh, that's the poor blacks, and this is the mid-tier blacks, and
oh no, you can't really say that shit anymore. You have to call it the ghetto.
Well,
everybody understands what you mean when you say the ghetto, right? Especially if you're like,
which is derogatory in itself. Like,
yeah,
the way the media portrays the African American and Latino communities is very deep seated in and the psychology behind it is very rooted, even in the term black. Black is bad. The black baby doll is bad. Black is associated with so many things that are negative.
Yeah.
That when it comes to, oh, that's a black person, which personally I don't like being called black. Why? I mean, I'm not a horrible person, right? Because psychologically you've ingrained that black is horrible. It's right. The bad cowboy. He's always dressed in what? Black.
Well, he's in black and gold.
And then media goes to black communities, and instead of showing the activists that are in the communities, or showing how people give back to each other in the communities, or showing how people are starting businesses in the communities, they show blacks in the media killing each other.
Or sitting outside on the porch.
Sitting outside on the porch. Doing nothing. Right?
Complaining about how they don't have any money. Right?
Right. So it's always negative. So black becomes associated with negative. Right?
And I mean, let's not also forget that, angels are supposed to be like these white ethereal beings.
Right.
All of the artwork, I mean, how are you supposed to combat, an artist rendition from 1,300 years ago and not replace the fucker? It's been around for so fucking long that people automatically assume Jesus was white.
That's what I was about to say. They lied to you guys and told you Jesus was white.
Well, I mean, they lied to me.
And if you just read the Bible, and you look at the geology, right? I'm sorry, the geography.
The geography and the demographics.
There's
no absolute way
he's white. If he is white, he's got a very good tan. He has an envious tan.
No, if he's white, he's fucking albino.
Like, he's got the greatest tan any white person has ever seen.
I don't know where the hell Haracorse's wool got translated to flowy beach locks. But that's actually a picture. That's actually a picture of the artist's gay lover who was incestuous with his sister.
So if I give up the term black woman, black person, black American, right? How would you define yourself? If we gave up black and white, like, what would you call yourself?
What do I call myself?
Mm-hmm.
A dude. I'm a guy.
You're a guy?
I'm a guy.
But how would you... if we still had a class system, right? So say we had the option to drop it. What would you call yourself?
Are all synonyms destroyed as well in this scenario? So instead of saying black, you would say dark. Or in my instance,
richer skin tone.
I
like richer skin tone.
But like mine would be white or pale, right?
That's not true.
Or white or snow skinned. Or snow skinned. Because it's white.
But
we've lost
white. But y'all are really pink.
Most of the time, yes, but there are some of these people out here that are walking around that either A, have albinoism, and
I think pink's cooler.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
What about just we're citizens of America? So what is wrong with just saying we're American?
Mm-hmm. Because there has to be a hierarchy. That's how Americans think. There has to be a hierarchy. That is why capitalism exists. Capitalism exists in order to institute a class hierarchy based off of wealth, which can barely be circumvented by a single level.
I think I'm moving forward with calling white Americans pink from now on.
The Pink American movement?
Yes. I mean, it's not derogatory, is it? Do you?
It could work. It could. It's just depending upon what is the general consensus.
I mean, pink is a cool color.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that.
But not everybody likes pink.
Exactly. The real question is how does it play against the rest of the populace? Like, where is the? Trust me, we call everybody blue, green, purple. Don't give a fuck. Someone's gonna have a fucking problem with it. Question is how many, right? I could say that I like cookies, and some motherfucker is gonna tell me that cookies is shit, brownies are the best, right? This is America.
Okay, how about this? How about white America calls themselves? No, well, the Viking people.
No. Sorry, they've ruined that for us.
Because I was going to say, and then African Americans could call themselves the warrior people.
Why did white people get such specific terminology, considering that not all white people are Nordic?
Why do we get a specific terminology when not all African Americans come from the same region, country?
Well, we were trying to generalize a whole bunch of other shit. Y'all were like, we're going to take the broad base of warrior. The broad base of warrior. Technically, a Viking would be considered a warrior because that was his secondary profession.
And that's the problem. That's the problem with classifying Americans right there. Right there. Because, no, not every African American is from directly from Africa or directly, well, yes, lineage wise, directly from Africa, but there's so many different regions, countries within Africa, because let's not forget Africa is a continent.
Yeah. Right?
So there's different countries within Africa. There's the migration of our people to the West Indies, to South America, to all these different places. You know, you can be dark skinned and to have so many different roots and so many different continents.
I think the only way to actually solve that question is for the African American community to take its own unique census and get everybody DNA tested for where their actual lineage comes from.
Babe, do you know where you are? This is the United States of America. If you go take a DNA test, you are bound to find something. You might even have like 5-10% Africa in you. Like, this is the U.S. and this is the problem that I'm saying. What I'm saying is
that not everybody. There's always going to be a sector of unknown, right? There's too many. There's too many at such an equal percentage to know where you as a human being, right, where your genes originated from, which part of the planet. Because I'm guaranteeing you that if I was to get DNA tested, I'm going to come up with some kind of majority anywhere between 51 and 65% Germanic.
Now,
Right?
can I ask you a question? Why does all this crap matter? Like, seriously. If you see that I'm about to walk deadpan in front of a bus, are you going to stop and think about how much percentage of white I am? Or are you going to rescue me from getting splattered from the bus?
Well, me personally, I'm going to help you get. I'm not going to let you get splattered by the bus. I may take the L for you, but I love you, so I'll take that L. Oh. Now, as far as.
But I mean, in general, if you saw somebody,
some people look at other people. Some people are that fucked up. They will look at you and be like, "You're black. You can get hit by that bus. Fuck you." Some people are like that, and we've seen it demonstrated over the last 4 years. These hate groups have been recruiting themselves, have been recruiting and gotten bigger and bigger and stronger and more influential the longer that Trump has been in office. And nobody wanted to really sit down and address that problem. We just talked about it and just let them do it.
And that's what I was talking about when I was referring to the truth. The truth, right? Expressing the truth and backing and continuing to back up what the truth is. Not, here's the truth, but let me retract, right? So, in my opinion, one of the first steps to conquering the cult that is Trump, conquering the division in our country, is exactly that. Us not classifying so much anymore. Not forgetting that there are deep wounds in this country that need to be healed, but at least coming together and saying, going forward, this is America, and this is what America looks like, right? And the problems that America has, we will fix it as a people, as one nation, right? Not as, it's the white people's problem, so they gotta fix it, and it's the black people's problem, and they need to fix it, and this is the Latinos' problem, and they need to fix it, and we're all mad at the Asians, and it's gone too far.
Actually, the realm of minorities is concerned, the Asians have got to save this fucking spot.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. And it's really interesting to me because, when it comes to Asia, Indians, they typically come over here and they roll under the banner of white America.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times. And what they don't realize is that they're in line to be treated just like we are. And they're typically really surprised when they are treated that way. And our community will tell them from day one, you're just like us. You're just like us. They may not show this to you right now.
But they will.
But give it a little bit. And eventually they'll tell you to go back to your home country too.
Mm-hmm.
And they have. So it's always like a real stick in the side, especially for African Americans. When we hear minority cultures come and say racism doesn't exist, it'll never exist, and then all of a sudden,
holy shit, it exists.
White supremacy rises up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we don't like you either." And then they're like, "Yeah, you were so busy getting buddy with Susie,
you didn't keep your eyes on Kyle."
You didn't keep your eyes on Kyle, and you dismissed,
Karen.
Everyone's dismissing Karen. Don't get it twisted. But
that's why I picked her name. That's why I picked the name.
You dismissed, the African American that might have tried to befriend you, right? You dismissed them because they're from a lower country culture,
lower class.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
No matter what we do.
Let me be clear.
Like no matter what we do,
everybody would be buddy with the person with the power. So if we put everybody as a single, if we represented everybody as a single person at a table,
mm-hmm.
right? It's been painted on and played up that white people are like this pinnacle thing because there's so many white billionaires and millionaires and blah blah blah, and they occupy the majority of this high income area, right? This high income percentile. So if you replace the white person with a black person, right, at this table, in that same economic position,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's going to be buddy-buddy with them.
Yeah, and that's what happens in Africa. When you go into affluent Africa, guess what? You have to be friends with an African that is affluent to do business, right? The same classism structure is going to be no matter where you are, but in particular, that particular type of racism is one that hurts even more because we can see it and we're like, hey buddy, don't go that way. You know, Ted Cruz, hey buddy, don't go that way. Like, they don't like you either, bro.
Fuck Ted Cruz. He's
You
a
know,
jerk. Canada don't even want him back.
See what I'm saying? And y'all, you know, so
I haven't liked Ted Cruz ever since I've seen Ted Cruz. Like, when I started questioning what Ted Cruz actually does with his day, the only thing that I could ever come up with is that this man must, at some point or another, sit down with a jar of rotten mayonnaise and eat it.
I think the truth will set the nation free.
I think the truth is going to light the entire country on fire.
But the country is already on fire. It's on a slow
It's
burn.
on a slow burn, but the truth is going to be like the gasoline that hits the fire.
But it didn't have to be. It did not have to be.
Well,
when
we had what?
when we had the issues at the border and they started taking the children, there could have been straight up reports.
Where the fuck is Save the Children for these kids?
Exactly.
Oh,
They were
I
missing.
forgot. They got co-opted. They got co-opted by a whole nother conspiracy group who
Basically was just like, George Soros and the Democrats are stealing children in Pizzagate.
like that's how you actually discredit. That's actually how you. That is literally how you can discredit a real movement and remove it from power is with the ability to basically tie it to a bunch of fucking loony people that just believe that the world is out to get them and their children and everything else.
So, yeah. And now Trump is the first president in U.S. history to be impeached twice.
Which is fucking hilarious.
Twice.
He should be the first president to ever be impeached 4 times at this point, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I don't care if you agree with it.
So, there was another opinion piece that we did on activist.com, and we were talking about President Johnson and the similarities with him, and I find it entertaining that now media is, we had another president like this before in history, and his name was Johnson, and he was impeached, and, yada yada. And I'm just like, the similarities between...
Hot question on that. Was he actually convicted and was he actually sentenced in his trial, or did he actually get acquitted?
He got away with 1 vote. So here's a situation where, again, there's corruption in Congress. And so when he finally did go to impeachment, right, and you can read up on this, there's a link below the podcast that links you to the House site, and it gives the entire impeachment articles and the story behind it. But basically, there was another representative in the House that he had pretty much made a deal with, on the low, and he was the deciding vote. So he was basically never, actually acquitted, and then he just rides off on his horse.
You mean he was never actually sentenced, he was acquitted?
Yeah, he was never actually sentenced, he was acquitted. And, the day of inauguration for the next president, he just takes off. Yeah.
No one gave a fuck.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
So, not too many consequences, but he caused, the enactment of black codes. He did a lot of damage trying to be a sympathizer, right? And, issuing pardons, where Congress was like, no, like, these people need to face consequences before we give them, pardons and this and that. And, Johnson's like, hey, I forgive you. It's all good. It's all good.
I understand where you're coming from. What?
Right. He was a sympathizer. And, very, very similar to Trump. And here we are. Like, it's like a repeat, except Trump gets the 2 factor here. He's like, 0-2.
What do you think the possibility is of Trump being Johnson's reincarnation and we're just replaying the same fucking unfinished business that he had?
Ew. It's possible.
I'm just saying. It's a possibility.
Anything's possible. So now we're leaning into conspiracy theories.
I mean, I never thought I'd see the day where we had killer attack squirrels.
But they're here. So yeah, food for thought. Is this gonna play out the same way? Are there no consequences for being in such a high position of power
and abusing
and bringing, the country to the brink of war? Yeah, the level of abuse, and now they're like, oh well, he did say these things, but he didn't mean it like that. But it's my understanding of the law. If I stand up in the middle of the movie theater, like, isn't that what they always teach you? If you stand up in the middle of the movie theater and you yell fire, and there is no fire, you go to jail.
Oh, that's anywhere.
Right?
If you falsely report or falsely do anything that involves the police or whatever into reporting and wasting resources, you go to jail. So why would it be that a president trying to withhold on to power, saying, oh, they're stealing the election from me? Why wasn't that grounds for impeachment immediately?
Exactly. An entire disruption to our electoral process.
It's wild. That is a wild concept. But I mean, I guess they don't want to push that button because they're afraid that impeachment is going to be like this most used tool, right? Why do we care? Why? Because really, you give a kid a new toy, they're going to play with it, right? Give a kid a new toy. So if you start impeaching each other for all sorts of crazy shit, we're going to get through this period where we impeach each other so much that everybody just goes, God, this takes forever. Because let's be clear, every time you try to impeach somebody, you got to sit on it for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And if you do that more than 3 times in a year, right, your corporate overlords aren't going to be too happy about it. Because you're holding up getting other legislation through.
He could have just resigned.
No, fuck that.
But resigning actually probably would have been his better out. Because with the impeachment, if it does go through, he will not be able to run again in 2024.
Thank God.
But his children will be able to.
Fuck that. I would extend that to his children. I would extend that to everybody.
But can we do that? You can't do that unless they're on trial themselves.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, they're accomplices. They're all promoting the same idea that the election was fucking stolen. They're all promoting the same thing that Daddy keeps opening his mouth about, especially the 2 brothers.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a review of the articles, the new articles of impeachment. And see
what we can find out.
Yeah, let's see what they are up to there. And yeah, I mean, I think this is where we are in regards to the happenings of 2021. Nice start.
Leaves a lot to be desired.
I think this is gonna be a banger year.
And if y'all ain't putting money away now, you should. And not just like in a CD account or a savings account or an IRA or whatever. Like, actually do some investing. Actually build some wealth. Remember, if you leave it in there for a year, you really don't pay much taxes on it. Much. You're still going to pay taxes on your investments when you pull them out.
Oh, I just thought of something. Okay, so instead of calling white people pink, how about we take it back to the 70s and call you guys vanilla and call us chocolate?
I mean, I'm game. I like vanilla.
See? It works.
Yeah, but I don't think like everybody
That's
else.
better.
I don't think like a lot of other people. Yeah, it's better, but I mean, who wants to be called
Because
vanilla?
think about it, vanilla isn't necessarily white. It's got a little bit of color in it, right? I mean, you guys aren't see-through.
Most of us.
But
Don't get it twisted. Some of these motherfuckers out here pale.
I just feel like somebody would be upset about being called vanilla too.
Someone might be offended by being called chocolate, want to be called cinnamon.
Pumpkin?
Fuck you.
Pumpkin spice. There you go. Pumpkin
You.
spice Americans. There it is.
You can kiss fire. Hell no.
I love you.
I love you too, but hell no. I will not be pumpkin spice jack shit. I want to be sweet potato.
All right. So you guys can catch our next podcast. We're trying to decide if we're going to go live for inauguration or just record it. And we're going to look into those articles of impeachment. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And enjoy the rest of your day.